I did once.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess we could.
Did I show you how to do where to hook the not to hook the microphone on the lamp? You hook it. I can see the audio recorders, and then it gets rid of that static.
Let's, they were pretty hard. We just do that one.
Those
These
are
are the
still
ones
red.
these are the ones that like.
I wonder if we should switch these. Like this is not fast.
Yeah, she is being in trouble. No, this one doesn't have.
So much fun. No, it's awesome. I mean, you're lucky though. You're like, you know, kids, like, let's do this. I'm like, get up here. Yeah.
I nailed it. How did you take my place in line? I've already been through. Oh, I know. And I'm by your daughter. I helped her. I got it. No, not what?
Oh my God. Yes. Sorry. You look like, I think, I know what you mean. Maybe we could be sisters.
No, you're welcome.
I'll take it.
How's things going? Yeah, just surprise, surprise, finally, huh? I didn't want anybody stepping on it. Yeah. Wow.
How we doing?
Not me. I think. No.
Some lady. Oh, yeah. I'll find somebody else. She said if she doesn't want
Would you all please rise? You all may be seated. Thank each and every one of you for coming out to celebrate the life of a great man, Kevin Iyer Rasmussen. Our husband, our beloved husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, and friend. Born January 23rd, we celebrated his birthday yesterday as we paid tribute to him. Passed away in his home, surrounded by his family and friends on January 13th, 2026. His parents were Rodney Kirk and Eunice Rasmussen of Salina. They both just passed away recently. Married Stacy A. Rasmussen. Children are Tanya and Colby Harward, Bree and Zach Wilcox, and Katie and Casey Church. He loved his grandchildren. Kate Harward, Dally Davis, Tryon Harward, Quinn Davis, Avery Church, McKinley Church, Ledge Davis, Breck Church, Scotland Church, and Brooks Wilcox. And one on the way, right? And a half, little half. So, his siblings, his two brothers and sister, Kirk and Lorraine Rasmussen, Craig and Dixie Rasmussen, and Sheila and Troy Manuel, preceded in death by his parents, Rodney and Eunice. His parents-in-law, Dion, Kenneth Payne, and Sheila Payne, brother-in-law, Jason Hansen, and sister-in-law, Natalie Hansen and Mitzi Rasmussen. I'm President Rasmussen. given me the honor to conduct. Grateful for the compassionate services of the Salina Creek, of the Salina First Ward, and all the people that have helped. We're grateful for them. Presiding is President Mason on the stand, along with Bishop Lisson and Wes Andresen of the First Ward. We recently just had a prayer by Colby Harward, a son-in-law. We're grateful for the prelude and postlude music by Andrea Andresen. Grateful for her and her helping the family today. We'll go ahead and have an invocation by Jeff Middleton, and we'll go from there.
Our most kind Father in heaven, as we humbly bow our heads before thee on this solemn occasion, as we honor the life of Kevin Rasmussen, we express our deepest love to thee for the opportunity that we've all had to get to know him and to be loved by him, and hope that we'd shown love to him throughout his life. We're so grateful for his example, for his commitment to serve others. We're inspired by his unending energy of supporting and encouraging and strengthening others. Was always looking for somebody that was downtrodden and was in need of help. We're so grateful for his love, his support, his life. We pray for an abundance of the Spirit to be poured out upon us this day of comfort. Please bless his family and friends, that we will know of an assurance that he's well, that he's doing well, that he knows we love him and care for him. We pray that we may more fully understand thy plan, that we may know that we may see him again in some short time, and that we can express our deepest love to him. Express our love and gratitude to our Savior, who gives us the opportunity to be renewed, to be resurrected, to be restored. And pray that our relationship with our Savior will grow as we contemplate the things that we hear and understand this day. We express our deepest love to thee, Father, and to thy Son, and we ask that thy Spirit will be with those that speak, that thou will bless them with extra strength and ability to convey those words that they'd like to say this day. Again, we're grateful for all we have. We love thee and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to announce the bulk of the program now. We will have a musical selection by Linda Sorensen and Melinda Goebel, The Dance, one of Garth Brooks' songs. And then we're going to have Lynn Robbins, a dear, dear friend, and fellow troublemaker, talk to us. And then we'll have Avery Church, a granddaughter, speak. And then a tribute by Kate Harward, Dally Davis, Tryon Harward, Quinn Davis, Kinley Church, Ledge Davis, Breck Church. Those are his grandchildren. They're going to come up and say a few words about their grandpa. And we'll then have a musical selection by the grandchildren, nieces, nephews, great nieces, and great nephews. It'll just be a primary medley. And that'll be accompanied by Linda Sorensen. And then we'll hear from Tanya and Bree, his two daughters, and they're sitting on the stand. And then we'll go to that point.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything for a moment. Wasn't I the king? If I'd only known how the king would fall. There used to say, you know, I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. My life is better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
I shouldn't have any tears left, but I do. Kevin and I met October 14th, 1960, in the old Salina Hospital. Doc Noyce was there. Kevin was born yesterday in January. He'd been up north and he had a lump on his face and they cut it off, stitched it up, whatever, and he was in the hospital getting that stitches taken care of, and that's when I was born. Evidently we were in the same room and he kind of looked at the nurse in a way he shouldn't have looked at her. The doctor slapped me and he's been getting me in trouble the rest of my life. So that's my rebuttal to Brock. And when we lost his mom Eunice last month, I lost my last witness because she always said to Kevin, she says, I'm so glad that you've got Lynn to keep you out of trouble, Kevin. And we just kind of shook our head. We both knew better. Kevin was a great man. He tells a story, and I remember a little bit of this. In kindergarten, we got him and I sent to the principal's office. And normally you do that a little later in life, but we started early, and one of our classmates, a girl that got her coat stolen, and one of us had got blamed, and of course I blamed him, and he blamed me, and I really don't remember how that turned out, but that's kind of when it started. We've had a great relationship our whole life. We've been many places. Started dragging Maine here, dragging Maine around, going to Salt Lake, going to concerts, going to Bonneville to drag races. We always stayed at Little America, no matter who we went with. I'm not sure why we did, because it was probably the most expensive place to stay, but that's where we stayed. But we had a lot of good times, a lot of good friends. We got a little older, and I got married. I was working for his dad. They sent us back to North Dakota to pick up a new crusher. We got up there in 104, 105 degrees, well, you couldn't leave the state when it was over 100 degrees with an oversized load. Well, the forecast was like 5 days of 100 and some degrees. So 4 o'clock in the morning, we hooked up to that crusher, and after staying a day or two, and we got out of North Dakota, and once we crossed the state line, we kind of breathed a sigh of relief and headed on home with that. Got down into Wyoming, wanted to stay a night, and there was no motel, so we slept across the truck seat with no sleeper and in a diesel there, just in the seats for a little bit, and said, you know, we just well keep driving. We were supposed to be keeping a logbook, and well, we didn't do that very good either. But anyway, we got home with the crusher. I could go on and tell stories what we did, and I'm going to tell a few more, but you know, Kevin was, no matter where we went, he was a giver, and people were attracted to him. He was attracted to people, but people were attracted to him. We, everywhere we went, he was very, very giving, cared about his community. He used the word community a lot. We need to give back to the community. And we would leave, and we'd roll back into the valley, and we'd get out by Aurora somewhere, and he says, oh, so good to be home. And I thought, well, we just spent a week on the beach, and it's, 20 degrees here. How come it's so good to be home? But to him, it always was good to roll back in the valley and be home for him. He was always very generous, always very giving, supported a lot of things, a lot of community things, a lot of things people don't know about. I know he financed several cars for people that worked for him. I often wondered, and I don't think it mattered to him whether he got the money back or not. But that's the kind of guy he was. If his workers needed some help or a down payment. I found a little lowrider a number of years ago down in California on Friday, and I said, well, we can't go till next week. Well, we can go. And I says, no, I've got to get the bank, get the money out. Oh, I've got that, he says. Kevin had a little orange. He called it the toolkit, but all it was a little orange pouch, and it had a little bit of money in there, and he always had some money in case we found a deal like that. And he'd finance me, and we'd jump in the truck, go down, and we pulled into a little alley and saw that thing shining. He says, we're going home with it, aren't we? And I said, we are. We picked it up, got home, got the bank, paid him back, but that's the kind of guy Kevin was. We went out to hot August nights a lot. We really enjoyed that. He'd go to the stock show with his kids. We'd head out Friday afternoon, so it was a short weekend. But we'd get out there. We bought a couple of cars while we were out there. The funniest story was one time we were coming back. We had the little Bronco on, a trailer, and headed back across I-80, and I'm looking at Instagram, and he always wanted a Suburban. He had those 72s, 68 to 72s, 67, little collection out there, but he always wanted a Suburban. Guy in Boise was selling one on Instagram, so I messaged him and punched in Kevin's number. Kevin gets a number on the phone about 2 minutes later, and he says, well, that's a strange number. I says, you better answer it. You never know. Could be some work. The guy says, oh, I got a Suburban you want to sell. And of course, in typical Kevin Rasmussen style, he starts beating him down. And the guy says, no, I'm pretty firm on that. And I said, Kevin, you've wanted one of these forever. It's clean, it's original, it's what you want. Give the man his money. And Kevin looked at me, and he did. Months later, the guy calls him, and he says, I've still got this Suburban up here. I've got the title, and I've got your money. This is a pretty good deal. He says, are you going to come? He says, yeah, we've been pretty busy at working construction, and away we went, got a trailer, and went up and got it and pulled it home. That was always Rodney's favorite thing to drive on the Main Street drag at homecoming. Rodney could fit Eunice and Verna Lee and whoever else you wanted in there, and they'd go up, have whatever, and drag Main with them, and that was always Rodney's favorite outfit. When I first moved out from my house that I was living up the trailer, he could tell I was kind of down and out, and I was. He would come up, bring me breakfast a lot of Saturday mornings. I was a breakfast eater, and he never was, but he always, when we traveled or whenever, made sure I got some breakfast. There were several times he'd go across to the McDonald's or something and just get me something and not get him anything. It was the kind of man and the kind of guy he was. He always thought of others first. You know, when we traveled, he would always buy the kids and then the grandkids some kind of stuff. And his life got on and the kids got older, he still would always, I need to pick something up for him. And he was so good at that because he didn't just run in and grab something and have it done like some of us probably would have done. He'd give it a lot of thought. And he always did bring something home. He was so kind and thoughtful and considerate. We always joked that when we traveled, if we joke, it's just, man, if we could just get a wife like you. We never fought. We never argued. We pulled in and we got a motel. We didn't care. You know, one night we'd eat steak. One night we'd eat a hamburger. It didn't matter. We just got along. There was never a harsh word, never anything. But he was so good to get along with. We tripped a lot. We would go to Yuma. We started that in our latter years. Sometimes if we could ride the bikes, or sometimes we'd pull them to Vegas and ride down. But Rodney and Eunice would be there. And they stayed at my cousin Pard's place. And so it was good for me to have family down there. But we were always so welcome. And Rodney and Eunice got to be like family. And then Kevin's family. My heart breaks for them that they've lost their dad and their grandpa at a fairly young age. But they do have a lot of good memories. Kev was good at making memories. He loved the snowmobile, loved the boat, loved to play, loved car shows. He just loved everything. He liked to go, he liked to see people. No matter where we went, we teased each other a lot. Because he'd say, well, you know more people. And I'd say, no, you know more people. We couldn't go anywhere we didn't run into somebody. We stopped one time down at Valley of Fire. We always got fuel out there because it was less busy. And I ran into an old Barney driver I knew first thing, just barely stepped out of the truck and said hi. And he said, see, I told you, you know more people than I do. But we did know a lot of people. We always had a good time. We were fortunate we had a lot of friends together. We had a good group of friends around us, classmates, some a year, a little bit older, a little bit younger, but we had a lot of good times together. We had a special, the two guys that were saying prayers, and I and Kevin, we went to Cabo every year. We went for 8 years straight fishing in January, usually January, February when it's cold here. We always stayed at the same place. And of course, Kevin was our leader and our king, our president. We'd get down there and they'd say, well, you guys won't be able to eat in the steakhouse tonight. You need to get a reservation there. And okay. Kevin would walk down, see the guys, give them a hug, yeah, what time do you guys want to come in tonight? We never went without a ribeye the first night or surf and turf, whatever we were getting. And Kev just had that way with people. Last year, 2025, we didn't go. We thought maybe we'd get down there a little later in the year, but we didn't. But we had a lot of good times. I'll never forget the last night on the beach. We would go eat and go down on the beach, listen to waves crash, slide each other, tell a few tales, say what a fun trip we've had. And we went to get up, and he says, I got something to tell you guys. And that's when he told us, we don't have so much longer. But he went down to Arizona and got that treatment, and that extended his life for some time. So many good times traveling and being with. Kevin's favorite color was orange. He liked that green bike too he had, but he loved orange. The old truck's orange, and he always liked the bright orange. I was talking with Tan the night he passed. She sent me a picture. It was just a bright, beautiful sunset. The whole sky was covered in orange. We kind of thought maybe that was a sign from him that everything's going to be okay. I went in and talked to our friend Dr. Barry, and that night I was a little worried about him, and I wanted to talk to him, and went in, and he says, Kevin come down here to my office 6-8 months ago, whatever it was, and we sit right here in these chairs, and he said, one of the last things he told me on that talk was, don't ever waste a sunset. Don't ever waste time. And Kev got a lot done. He drove a lot. He talked on the phone a lot. His workers used to always tease him how much he was on the phone. But, he visited with people, but he also got a lot done. He rounded up work and he did things. I could talk all day about Kev and about our memories. But he was a great man. He was a great friend, great father. So many of us loved you. So far, we've got along pretty good without him, but it's only been 10 days. I wonder what we're going to do as time goes on, but we will go on. I lay a little challenge that Kevin would leave you if you get an inkling to stop, see somebody, or you're thinking of going on a trip, or you haven't called somebody in a while, give them a phone call. Spend some time with them. We said goodbye 3 or 4 times out the house. But as they closed the casket, it was a little different goodbye, because that's the last one. I love you, Kev. I know you're in a better place. You're not suffering. You've not got all the things of the world going on. I was truly a little bit relieved when he did pass away. I was fortunate to be out to the house, and he passed away, and I stepped back. We give him a love, everybody, and I went back behind the couch, and I felt comfort and peace, and it was coming from him, because he was out of his misery and his suffering. He had the mantra, no bad days. I went up to the shop a couple of years ago, and he was throwing up in the middle of the afternoon, and I rolled my window down. I said, no bad days, huh? And he said, nope, no bad days. And I said, when I throw up, it's a bad day for me. He says, it's just my life. And it was. I think he probably threw up more than once every day for 4 years or longer when he started his treatment. He never let anybody know. He just continued on. He definitely was not a downer. He was going through a lot of pain, a lot of things. And he never let on for that. He was always so positive, and I appreciate that. Once again, I love you, Kev. I'm honored to be here speaking in the funeral. I love his family. They've treated me just like family. Love you, Kev.
Okay, so my goal is to get through this without crying, but let's be honest, that's probably not going to happen. I remember my grandpa always said he didn't have favorite grandkids. He only had favorite memories with each of them. But quite a few of Grandpa's memories couldn't be shared because they were illegal. To all the cops who hear this, this is alleged, there is no proof. But don't worry, we can tell them now because you can't be arrested. So there's that. There are stories that sound almost lit up, like the time Grandpa was hunting and accidentally shot a cougar in the butt and it made a horrible screeching sound. Instead of panicking, he just shushed it, like telling the cougar to quiet down was a totally reasonable thing to do. That story makes me laugh every time because it captures his confidence and his ability to stay completely unfazed no matter what was happening. Although this one had him a little phased. Some of my favorite memories of Grandpa are just driving around with him or being with him while he did everyday things. Nothing ever felt boring when Grandpa was there because somehow he made everything fun, even things that were technically work. One of the best examples of that is popcorn nights. Grandpa had this swirly pop. Swear on my life, made the best popcorn in the world. Didn't matter how late it was or what time was supposed to be bedtime. If someone asked for popcorn, Grandpa would make it. He'd stand there patiently turning the handle like popcorn was his most important responsibility. Looking back, it wasn't really about the popcorn. It was about how he always made time for us, no matter what. Another thing Grandpa was good at was making us feel included. He took all the grandkids' baby with him and even let us drive Grader. Remember, this is a legend. Which now seemed kind of crazy, but to him, it was normal. He trusted us and wanted us to learn. One time I was wearing sandals and the asphalt was so hot I couldn't walk on it. Without even thinking twice, Grandpa picked me up and carried me so I could write the paper. That moment sticks with me because it shows exactly who he was. Strong, kind, and always watching out for us. Then there was a weekend, Grandpa took the grandkids to the car show. He spoiled us the entire time and made us feel so special. On the way home, we stopped for frozen yogurt, and that should have been the end of it, but let's face it, it's Kevin. But we begged him for more ice cream, and instead of saying no, he just laughed and said, "The good thing about being with Grandpa is you get to make the rules. The bad thing is, I can't say no." And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, we got more ice cream. That was Grandpa. He didn't just hear us, he listened, and he loved seeing us happy. Grandpa also loved old cars. Driving Main Street with him felt like a big deal. Like they were part of something important. Those cars weren't just cars to him. They were stories, memories, and something he was proud of. Riding with him made me feel proud too. But when I think about Grandpa, what I remember isn't just the funny stories or friendships. It's how he made us feel. He made us feel safe. He made us feel trusted. He made us feel loved without the need to say it out loud. He taught us how to work hard and how to enjoy life and how to take care of people around us. He showed us that love isn't always big speeches. It's carrying someone across hot asphalt, making popcorn late at night, or stopping for ice cream just because you can. I feel really lucky to have had Grandpa like him. Even though we miss him so much, I know he's with us in every story we tell, every laugh we share, and every time we choose to be kind and patient and a little bit fun, just like he was. Thank you for the most beautiful memories and the most meaningful lessons, Grandpa. I could have imagined a better grandpa than you.
I guess I'll share the first story. My story is not really a story about me and my grandpa, but if you know Kevin, wherever he was going, he was probably going there fast. And when I very first got my learner's license, I got right on the freeway and I set the speedometer right at 90. And my mom said, "What are you doing? You're going 90 on the freeway." And I said, "Grandpa always goes 90 on the freeway." So that's probably my favorite memory of my grandpa, was all the bad influences he gave me.
Some of my favorite memories with my grandpa also happened behind the wheel of his truck. Driving with him wasn't something we really just did. It was where I learned who he was and who he taught me, and how he taught me some of the most important life lessons that I've learned. When I was 13, Grandpa decided I was ready to drive. Not legally ready, but a special grandpa kind of ready, which apparently was the only requirement that ever mattered. He lived with the farm in his house. There was a perfect private road, which obviously made the perfect spot for a first driving lesson. So it was Thanksgiving morning, and we got into a small Ford Ranger with only 2 seats. And somehow he figured out a way to get all 3 of us in it. I was in the driver's seat, crammed up against the door, his shoulder was pressed against mine, and then my sister was crammed against the door, and then his other shoulder. It was full, very full. I was feeling pretty confident until I realized it's pretty hard to steer with your arms squished up against your side, and that's when I drove right over a railroad tie. The truck went right over it and stopped. I froze, and I was convinced that I had ruined one of 3 things: Thanksgiving, the truck, or my entire driving future. But Grandpa just laughed. Then, like it was nothing, he got out and literally lifted the truck off of the railroad tie. Even when he was 62 years old and dealing with cancer, he was insanely strong, but that's just who he was. Then again, when I was 14, he decided it was time to level up and had me drive home from the cabin. Before he left, he casually told me that the steep, winding mountain road would be an easy drive and it would be no problem at all. Plot twist, it was absolutely not. But that was something that Grandpa was notorious for. He would tell you a gun had no kick or a horse was very gentle and easy to ride, and then watch as you figured it out for yourself. He had a habit of making us all do hard things and telling us they were the easiest things in the world. As we were driving, I turned on our shared playlist with our favorite artists, Fleetwood Mac, Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Eagles, and Creedence Clearwater Revival, and more. That was the music that always played when we drove together, and I was terrified. My hands were locked on the steering wheel and my heart was racing. I felt every curve sharper than the last, and then he reached over and turned on the truck's Jake brake. And then, as the truck roared through the mountains, and I was silently panicking, he just smiled and said, "Would you listen to that Jake brake? Because it's one of his favorite sounds in the world." The whole drive, he was completely calm, but when we finally got home, he laughed and told me he could see that my knuckles were white from how tightly I'd been holding onto the wheel. He said it to tease me, but I knew that he was proud. Then, this summer, I finally was legally able to drive with him. Driving with him was so much easier than driving with my mom. And the one day I reached over and told him, and he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, just in case you're wondering, my mom's Jatmobile, which is what he called her Forerunner, was on 2 wheels on the way to Walmart, going around the curve." I also ran 2 red lights that day. He said, "I still trust you no matter what." And that's the only confidence I've ever needed was from him. And yesterday morning, I had a scope done over at the hospital, and he had been so worried about it. He called me all the time and made sure I was okay, and even on his deathbed, he told me, "You're in my prayers, and I just want you to be okay." And he was so worried about it, and it ended up going really well. And yesterday, as we drove out of the hospital, I look in front of us, and the hearse is carrying his casket in front of us. It was perfect timing. He pulled out in front of us, and he started going 95. It was like one last time. He got to drive me home, steady, calm, and taking care of me like he always does. Driving with Grandpa was never really about the road or the wheel. It was about him trusting me and him pushing me to do hard things. And every time I get behind the wheel, I'll hear his laugh and remember the Jake brake and think of our music playing, because that's part of him will always be riding with me. And just so he knows, I also backed his Ford Ranger into a trailer one time and I never told him. I probably shouldn't be allowed to drive, but...
My favorite memories with Grandpa were our cabin trips. They were truly unbeatable, and they will stay with me for the rest of my life. One memory that stands out the most is when we went up to the cabin during the elk rut. We fell asleep listening to elk bugling in the distance. When I woke up the next morning, Grandpa already had breakfast made. We watched the elk on the hill behind behind the cabin, sipping hot chocolate and sitting by the fire. Later we went out to eat at Ballery Haven back when it was still a restaurant, now a fast food place. We stayed up there for 3 nights and every moment was special. We had an amazing time. Another one of my favorite memories with Grandpa is our snowmobiling trips. He used to say, "Don't look at the rocks, they just get closer." It was so funny. He would always tell us about that time that my dad said, don't hit that rock. And he said, "I'll keep it in my sight." And he just looked at it and he just went straight to the rock. And and as soon as we get to the cabin after we're done snowmobiling, he would always go inside and start a fire. That was definitely a happy place for my grandpa. My grandpa loved the cabin, and it was one of his favorite places to be. It will always be special to me, and those are some of my favorite memories of Grandpa.
My grandpa was one of the strongest and bravest people I will ever know, and probably will ever know. He went through a lot, but you never really heard him complain about it. He just handled things and kept showing up. He had 10 grandkids, which was wild, because somehow he made every single one of us feel like the favorite. And I know he loved us all equally, but I still fully believe I was the favorite. And I think all 10 of us feel we were the favorite too. And that's how we know he did it right. He taught me that strength doesn't have to be loud, and bravery doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like being kind, steady, and making people feel special without even trying. And that's the impact he left on my life and all this. One of my favorite memories of my grandpa is actually from the day that could have been really heavy and sad. We went to visit my great-grandpa Rodney in the hospital. Hospitals aren't exactly known for being fun. Everything felt quiet and serious. But somehow my grandpa still made it feel normal and safe. We giggled through the whole thing. After the visit, instead of going straight to the motorhome where we were sleeping in the parking lot, he took me and lunch to R&R barbecue. No questions, no hesitation, just what do you want? And the answer for both of us was everything. Everything and anything. We got seafoam because obviously it was his favorite candy from his mission in England. And whatever else sounded good. It wasn't a special occasion, but he treated it like one. That was kind of his thing. He knew when a moment needed comfort, and that's when it needed food, preferably dessert, because that was definitely his thing. He didn't try to make the day less sad just by pretending it wasn't sad. He just added something good into it, something like sitting there eating seafoam under the Christmas lights, shopping at the little shops. At the candy shop, he proceeded to tell the young lady behind the cash register, "I will have 6 of everything in the chocolate case." We then earned 4 free pounds of fudge. We ate it all. I remember thinking how weird it was that we could laugh after being in a hospital, but that's what he taught me. Even on hard days, you're allowed to enjoy something. You're allowed to choose joy, where you can find it, because we had no bad days. That memory sticks with me, because it shows who he was, someone who showed up, took care of people in quiet ways, like who believed love looks like a hospital visit, and sometimes it looks like letting a kid order whatever they want. If you ask anyone who's ever ate with him or gone out with him, they got whatever they want. I will always carry that lesson with me, and honestly, every time I see seafoam, I will think of him and probably smile. Whether you heard him playing the song in the sun Jimmy, or whatever else he was cruising around in that day, he would want us to know, like his favorite song Slow Ride, he'd want us to take time and enjoy the ride and never forget to have a little fun.
I'm going to talk about our road trip to Arizona. We were on the road trip to Arizona. It was me, my grandma, and my cousin Bruce too. And in the middle of the trip, we got stuck in a traffic jam. It was a traffic jam because there was a giant fire. And we found this out from a tire salesman, which nobody knows. I don't even know. And so Grandpa made sure everybody in the 5-mile radius had food and water. Well, Grandpa got talking to people because he didn't even know Grandma's on the weekend. Grandma carried she didn't want me going on a cactus. She was so scared she was gonna get attacked by a snake or something. The only thing I could do was laugh. So by the time we got out of the traffic jam, Grandpa knew everybody in the 5-mile radius. We all had a good trip, including Grandma. She had a fun time. Grandma is still terrified to this day.
Stand on it. You just nailed it. Look at everybody. There you go.
Okay, well, probably gonna cry, so I am Ledge. I'm named after my grandpa, and I am really proud to be his mini. Me or his little man. My grandpa loved adventures, and we went to car shows, restaurants, and a lot of weekend trips. Fishing at Chris's Pond with grandpa and my cousin was the best. My favorite trips were to the cabin. Grandpa was always happy. Grandpa was always happiest there, and I loved being with him. Every year on my birthday, Grandpa took me on a Harley ride. While I listened to George Jones, that made me feel really special. He came out to all my wrestling sports and always yelled, "Tie up a leg." I could always hear him cheering for me. I was little. I was little. My mom was trying to potty train me. Me and my grandpa tried to help too. He told me if I used the big boy potty, he would take me to the beaver pawn shop and buy me a gun. So I did. When I got there, I saw the fishing bobbers, and I decided that's all I wanted. Grandpa bought me those bobbers, and I could never understand how I didn't want that gun instead. I love my grandpa so much, and I'll miss him forever. My favorite memory with Grandpa Teddy was when he was Santa's helper. Santa Pete, Grandpa never peeked through his windows because they were nice and right, and he could fly, and he had elf ears, and he had a little hat. And he fitted through Ted's windows. And he helped Santa fix his sleigh. And I love Grandpa.
All right, nieces, nephews, let's come up.
question.
We should probably give them a little bit of a preface as
Right.
to what this is.
This is unconventional, okay? This is not things you see in a funeral all the time. We started with Uncle Jason,
Yes.
and then Grandpa Dion, and Grandma Sheila, and
We're considering doing this as a paid gig.
Chance
Just
has already-
kidding. We
Chance
quit.
has already
We're
booked us
done.
wherever
Yeah,
Chance
Chance
is.
already hired
He already
us.
booked us.
And Melissa wants it too. Anyway, we do things unconventional. We threw a birthday party at my dad's funeral, so we never go by the rules.
And
he
didn't
would
want
love
us,
that.
He didn't want us to cry. He didn't want us to be sad because he wanted us to laugh. He didn't want to be roasted, but if you knew Kev, how do you not roast him? Like, it's happening. He's not here to tell us no, it's happening. All right, I'll start. And also, let's just remember, Kev was kind of an unfiltered guy, okay? He was a very Christ-like man, but he said some, he was a construction worker, and he said those words. So we'll do our best, but you might hear some things, and I'm sorry. When I think about my dad, the very first word that comes to mind is kind and generous. He was the most Christ-like person I've ever known.
Not because he ever tried to be noticed for it, but because loving people simply came natural to him.
He had a way of making everyone feel seen, welcomed, and important.
He was also the life of the party. He was funny, quick-witted, and could turn any ordinary moment into something unforgettable.
Yeah. Dad lived he lived life to the absolute fullest. He was always chasing the next adventure and the next experience, or let's be honest, the next bit of chaos.
There was always something going on when he was around, and if there wasn't, he'd create it. Sometimes it was exhausting to keep up with him. We used to joke that he was the Energizer Bunny because he just wouldn't quit.
There's so many times that Mom was like,
Please, just sit
just
down.
sit down for a minute. Like, you should have had Dad on Adderall, like, probably, if we look back. Looking back now, we can't help but wonder if a part of him knew his time might be shorter than he wanted. If he did, he didn't waste a single moment.
He packed a lifetime of adventure, laughter, and memories into the days he was given, and all of us are richer because we got to live it with him. My dad meant everything to us, and today as we honor his life, it feels right to remember him the way he lived, by sharing not only the goodness of his heart, but also some of the laughter he so freely gave to everyone around him.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into the good stuff. Okay. Kev's career path started at the rightful age, like 3 or 4. He was an entrepreneur since he could talk. Like, I'm not kidding. Before he was able to even run cat equipment, he had to get creative and come up with different ways to bring home the dough, because when you're 4, you've got things to buy. His first gig was going up to the farm, filling his wagon full of manure, and then selling it to all the old ladies in the neighborhood for their flower beds. Literally, he was born an entrepreneur. Career started at 4. Oh, I got another one. His first real paycheck on an actual job came pretty early, too. He was pretty little, probably less than 10, and he went on a job with Grandpa. It was a federal job. He actually was a lot of help, so he decided to turn in his own time card to a federal job, and he got Grandpa in big trouble. They were like, who is this person, Kevin, on your time? Federal jobs, they keep it pretty tight.
Yeah, it's illegal to be 10.
Right, like, that's not supposed to be a thing. So somehow it worked out. They ended up getting him a paycheck, but he bought himself fancy new red cowboy boots with his first paycheck that
And Grandpa probably had to pay that paycheck and several back in fines.
Yes.
Grandma Eunice always told us a story when my dad was younger that he was a little bit of a handful. She would go to put him down for a nap, and he would jump out of his crib and beat her out the door. And she'd always have to chase him down and start the nap time routine all over again. After successfully escaping nap time too many times, Grandma had to get creative. So she tied him in his crib, one arm and one leg, and she said it was the only way. Fast forward about 60 years, and my dad is down in Arizona after his stroke and open heart surgery, and it was completely mandatory he stay bedridden. The nurses kept explaining how important it was, and he could not get up, and my dad was not having it. He kept trying to leave. So the nurses had to put an alarm on his bed, and if one bum cheek even thought of leaving the bed, an alarm went off, and all of the nurses on the floor came running into the room. They had to move him. We had a nice desert view out the window. They had to move him to the nurse's station, to the room right next to the nurse's station, and they put signs on his door that said flight risk, and he had to wear a bracelet that said flight risk. But while this was going off and the alarm was going off and the nurses were rushing in, Grandma said, "Now you see why I tied him in his crib, don't you?" And I was like, "Touche, Grandma." Yes,
Tell
I
him
see
how
it
the
now.
nurse had like literal sweat stains.
Yeah, he was a handful.
Yeah. Right after high school, Dad spent some time studying diesel mechanics up at Utah Technical College up north. He always told us this story about this time this big doofy college football player would come around the dorms and he would smash. So like they would do, what was it?
They would all just make snowmen.
Yeah, they would go make snowmen after, they would all get together, make snowmen, have hot chocolate. And he said that the dorms, this guy would come and smash everyone's snowmen after a good snowstorm. My dad got sick of this guy. So he got a hose, sprayed down his snowman with water, so he was a giant ice man.
Then packed him with snow.
And then sprayed him again. And I think this was like all day thing, because I mean, I don't know. I've never snowman smashed, but it sounds to be that he did a good job at making this ice man. Anyway, this guy came ready. He came running around the corner, ready to smash this snowman, and bam, knocked this poor guy clean out, like out. He said he hit that snow ice man so hard. For a minute, he thought he had committed snowman homicide. Like, he was so lucky that no lives were lost that night, but the lessons were learned for that kid. Don't smash people's snowmen. Don't mess with Salina Boys snowmen. Like, that is something you don't want to do.
When Cade was about 3 or 4 years old, my dad called and asked to borrow him for the weekend. My dad had a bunch of new activities for the weekend of the 24th, and he wanted to take Cade. Cade was his first grandson, so he was ready to start some traditions with him. And so he borrowed Cade for the weekend, and they did all sorts of things. We don't even know for sure what they did, but he had the best time. Fast forward a few months later, and Cade got a little karaoke kit for Christmas. A few days after Christmas, he's singing in his karaoke kit and singing in the microphone, and he's like, "Oh man, I sure love hearing my name on the microphone." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And he goes, "Yeah, when I went with Grandpa to the duck race, they said on the microphone, 'There is a grandpa who's lost his grandson named Cade Harward. Cade, you need to come find your grandpa.'" I instantly picked up the phone and said, "Dad, do you need to tell me why Cade's saying he needs to hear his name on the microphone?" Since he heard it at the duck race, and he started laughing so hard. I started laughing so hard, and he said, "Cade and I had a deal. What happens with Grandpa stays with Grandpa." But we'll also preface this with saying, when my dad got nervous or uncomfortable, he would get what we called the Eunice giggles. It was just when it was uncomfortable, my dad would just start giggling uncontrollably. And my grandma had the cutest giggle, and it sounded just like hers, but in the most unfortunate situations, he giggles, and he passed that on to all of us. So while we laugh up here at our dad's funeral, it's just because it's a coping mechanism, and it's genetic, and we can't help it.
Right. When my dad was in high school, he had certain people that he always looked out for, people that couldn't always look out for themselves. One day, a sweet girl he thought the world of was getting bullied. The bully was flipping her bra strap, and she was so upset and crying. My dad saw this and came in and beat the crap out of this kid that was doing this to him. The principal came in, broke up the fight, and then took my dad to the principal's office. The principal sat down, asked him his favorite drink, and told him to finish his soda and go back to class.
No matter where we were traveling or going, he always made sure that we knew how to get there. He would call us before we left, tell us which exits to take and which roads to turn on. He paved a lot of the roads in the state at one point or another, and so he would always talk to us in trucker speak and tell us to stay on 18 until I got to 24 or something like that. I never could remember the road names like he could, but I guess we better learn or we won't know where we're going without him. He would know exactly how long it took us to get there, and he always had he must have had like a sixth sense, because you'd be rolling off the freeway and your phone would ring and he'd say, "Where are you?
You made her?
You made her." He'd always know. So he always made sure we got home safe. So it was really fitting that he followed Dally home yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. When my dad and Ruger were young, they both had motorcycles. Clearly, this had trouble written all over it. Those two decided to go down Main Street doing wheelies, and they ran right into Woody, the officer. He started chasing them, and they were able to get away and pull into Grandma Eunice's garage, hiding their bikes. And it's funny, years later at Ruger's funeral, Woody told my dad, he came up behind him, whispered in my ear, and it was whispered in his ear and said, "I knew it was you and Ruger that day."
My dad was a pretty level-headed guy until he heard a rattle in the car or truck. Then he would absolutely lose his mind trying to find where the noise was coming from. He would risk everyone's life to stop the noise. And if you even thought of putting two styrofoam to-go containers on top of each other and letting them wiggle against each other on the car ride home, you better think twice. He would say, "I'll drive this truck off the road before I listen to it rattle all the way there." Sometimes I think God purposely took some of his hearing away as he aged to keep us safe as we traveled with him. But now I'm him and I can't stand a rattle either, so it's funny how that worked out.
Yeah. My dad has the best group of friends a guy could ask for. They were trouble back in the day. He loved telling stories when him and Ruger mouthed off to some guy in Richfield, some guys from Richfield that were ready to fight, and old Rook smashed the ice cream in the kid's face, and thank goodness Gary Mason smashed on it and got him out of there because they were about ready to fight.
My dad was the most generous guy I knew. The truth is, he would hate that we were even talking about it at all, but since he's passed, I have had so many people tell me things he's done for them. Some small, some not small at all. He never said a word about it, and I doubt we'll ever know all of the things he's done for everybody. And that is how he would want it. He didn't want any accolades or recognition. He just wanted to help people, and that's what he did.
Yeah. As my dad aged, his friend group grew. Still trouble, though. Continued into adulthood. He was on a trip in California near San Francisco hunting pigs. I think it was, right, Mom? They were hunting pigs in San Francisco?
Uh-oh.
I didn't even know they had pigs in San Francisco.
Was it Jeff's giving us the, yeah, he's like, yeah.
It was pigs. The friend group grew, and then we got Jeff and Kelly and Scott, and we got all these guys. So they got a rental car and took it jumping the hills of San Francisco, seeing how much air they could get on those rolling hills in San Francisco. He said they caught some wicked air. He's like, it was so crazy. He said, don't worry though, because Jeff bought the extra rental insurance coverage, so like it was fine. That needed to be tested and done.
And he'd always say, drive it like a rental. And
now we know what that
means. He was, well, oddly enough, he was actually very particular about his vehicles, and he had two non-negotiable rules when it came to his trucks. Nothing on the dashboard ever, not paper, not hats, nothing. It was his pet peeve. And the second was, don't you even think of putting something in the side of the bed, from the side of the truck. And I'm looking out at some of you, and I know you know what I'm talking about, because yes, see, Kyle, you only did it once, right? Yep, you only did it once. You put the tailgate down. That's the only way.
You stepped on the tire. He judged you. Like, he was like, I don't know if we can be friends. Like, it was like a make or break for him.
Yeah.
Kev was the coolest dude, coolest dad and uncle and dude, whatever. He always made things fun. I'm pretty sure he taught most of us how to do burnouts, spin brodies, drive truck, semis, clutches, equipment. I won a Brody contest one time with the boys in high school. I remember coming home and telling him he's probably never been more proud of me. Like college graduation, yeah, he was proud. Beating the boys in the Brody contest, biggest dad flex ever. Getting a full scoop in the dozer blade, that's my girl, you know. Getting a 4.0 all through college as a single mom, cool, you know, proud. But have you seen my girl spin Brodies? You know, priorities.
And it should be stated that she may have done a good Brody spin this morning in the empty parking lot.
That
in
is
memory
true.
of Kev.
Me and my kids, which is weird. I was the first one here. I'm normally the last. We pull in, and I thought, you know, I'm going to pull my car around so we can be in the procession. And I go back there, and I'm like, snow, empty parking lot. And I'm like, yeah. Like my dad would have wanted. And Ledge was all, that was awesome. Can you teach me that? And I'm like, I got you.
When you're older.
My dad taught me, I'll teach you.
My dad had great taste in music. He loved all kinds of music, but he had absolutely no use for anything that was rap or Baby Baby. That's what he called it. He did not like Baby Baby. He stuck with the classics, and he made sure all of his kids and grandkids knew all the oldies but goodies. One time I accidentally really hurt his feelings and I didn't mean to. It was my freshman year of college and my roommates and I were making some burnt CDs. And if you think we were illegally pirating music from Napster, no, we weren't. I called him to tell him that I'd used my computer and a thing called Google. This is going to make me sound so old.
You are.
I used this thing called Google to find a song that I couldn't figure out what it was called, and he got so offended. Why would you need a Google when you could just call me? And he was right. I said a few lines of the song, and he knew the artist, he knew the name of the album, and he knew the song title. I didn't need a Google. He was really disappointed in me, but I continued to disappoint him over and over and over. When he would say, "Who sings this?" and I would have no idea. I know the words. I'll sing the song with you, but I don't know who sang it, and that's really was
Right.
disappointing to him. He could not imagine how I could not figure it out. But on a side note, if you didn't get one of the business cards, the little business cards that Carl printed, there's a QR code on there, and it has Kev Dog's playlist on it. And so if you scan that QR code, it will pull up
So
his
the
playlist.
back of it, flip it over, scan it with your phone, and that's his playlist, and it was his most favorite.
He loved it.
Yeah, he loved music. His leg would start bouncing. He loved his little playlist that we're telling you about. It literally, he would send it to random people all the time. Like I'd get a phone call and he'd say, "Hey sis, you send me the playlist. We met a group of ladies on the beach and they're listening to our music and they would like your playlist. So I have literally sent this playlist to
Strangers
around
all over the world."
Yeah.
So he'll love that you have it. Looking back on photos this past week to get the memory video completed, I noticed my dad had wet hair in a lot of the photos of big events for us girls. The daddy-daughter date pictures, wet hair. Senior night photos, wet hair. I remember sometimes being a little frustrated because it felt like he was always showing up late. But, oh please. As an adult, I saw it differently this time around. He always showed up. He usually drove hours to be there and just have a few cookies at the steak center or something stupid. He never missed anything, and I didn't just see it this time as a dad that was running late. I saw it as a dad who was working his butt off for his family and always also showed up for them.
Yes. My dad also he always enjoyed hunting with his brothers. Once he and Craig went to New Mexico, right, Craig? Is that where it is?
No.
Elk hunting. We're getting to the good stuff now, guys. I mean, it's kind of been, but let's get ready, okay? The elk hunt was super cool. There was like a really cool rut pattern that they followed, and the actual trail the elk migrated on, they called the master trail. So on the opening morning of the hunt, my dad and Craig go out to find their spot on this master trail. Well, Kev always struggled with early morning Dr. Pepper and Snicker combo, okay? Like it got his guts a churning. And Kev always, he was always had to have it though. Like we'd always be like, that's not a good idea. He didn't care, he still did it. And so he obviously got into trouble. He found a nice bush and he proceeded to do what he needed to do. Just then, a guy pops out of the bush yelling at him just as he did what he had to do and said, "This guy just pooped on the master trail." He said, this guy shot up with like a sleeping bag, pops up out of nowhere, and he's like, "I'm lucky I didn't poop on him. He was like right in the bush." And so this guy was mad, stormed off, went up the hill, had all of his stuff, was just madder than heck. Kev hurried back up to Craig and let him know the error he had made. He said, "I'm sorry, but I think I made a mistake. I don't know. I'm not doing this justice." Okay, just hold on, you guys. Hold on. We'll let the master tell his story. Let's see. Maybe.
It's your time, Kev.
Where's Dad? Maybe he's in there.
About 10 minutes later, here comes this guy. He had his backpack and sleep bag and everything else on it. He's madder than hell. I ruined the hunt for everybody in this migration hunt. Off to Camp he goes, and pretty soon the other guy was hunting would come up, and he's like, "Did you hear some guy shit on the Anyway, we sat there for a while, and we go back to camp. of state or shit on the Anyway, we were there 3 days, never seen an outfit. I was not going to take all the responsibility for living or not. They probably still tell the story about some out of state or shit on
He's unfiltered, I'm sorry. I can't do the story justice, right, Craig? No one of us can. It had to be his. Okay, while we're on the topic of Kev's tummy troubles, let's remember the time that Lorraine hooked him up with all the healthy things, like vitamins, shakes, oils, everything, I swear. Like, he came home with like a box, and he was just, it's funny he got cancer, because he was, based off everything he got from Lorraine, he was gonna live to be 100. His first morning, he took all of the things and then decided to go shopping at Larson's Eats Hardware. This is when things went south quickly. He said mid-aisle, his stomach started doing the old Watuski. That's what he said. He said panic set in quickly, and there was a major doubt that he was not going to make it to the restroom. He said with much concentration and focus and determination, he actually did make it to the restroom. He said he just had to sit down, and he was what I could only imagine as like the scene from Dumb and Dumber. Okay, I think that's what was happening. And he said, I looked down, and there's sparkly silver shoes next to him in the stall. He was in the woman's bathroom this whole time. Luckily, the lady heard the commotion and got out of there because he was so embarrassed.
Bless his heart and his tummy. Oh, no. Okay. He loved the thunder and the rain, and I remember laying on the tramp watching storms wrapped in trash bags or in the camper shell of the old 72. He always loved a good clap of thunder, and then he'd go, oh, how do you do it?
It's the Tim Allen.
A good clap of
growl.
thunder. We should have had Troy come up and do that
Right.
for us. He's a professional. But when we talked about sitting out on the trampoline wrapped in trash bags, we both thought, what the heck?
That's a really bad idea.
Yeah. My mom obviously wasn't home that day.
He's like, there's lightning. Let's go lay on the metal trampoline.
Yeah, in the rain. But, you know, Kev, he was always living on the edge.
Yeah. Dad sucked at hunting. We just needed to, now I can say it out loud now, right? Because he would never, like, respectfully, he just would never shut up, you guys. He normally took the Dr. Pepper, which we've already discussed. That's been an issue. All morning.
It wasn't isolated to just New Mexico.
No, you guys, tummy troubles was a hunting thing. And he'd rather sit and have a heart-to-heart with you on the hunt than hunt anything. It's a true miracle if he killed something, because seriously, he never shut up, and he came for the snacks and the Dr. Pepper.
Some of our best memories were made on the mountain. We grew up there. We loved the mountains, and he made sure that his kids loved the mountains and that his grandkids did too. And his nieces and nephews were part of that. We were the mountain crew. I don't know how none of us got lost, but I think we're all here, aren't we? But when we moved from Salina to Cedar, I was so sad because I missed the mountains so much. In the fall, I would always ask him for updates to see if the leaves were changing. This one's gonna get me. Okay, stop. I'm gonna be okay. Often he would pack me up and take me back to the mountains for the weekend so I could see them for myself. If he couldn't get me back to the mountains, he'd drive up the canyon and cut down a bundle of leaves and bring them back to me. And he would say, if I can't bring you to the mountains, then I'll bring the mountains to you. It's one of my very favorite things that he did for me as a dad. And it was such a simple thing, but it meant more. I mean, it means more now that I'm an adult. I told my boys about my dad doing that for me when I was little, and now if they go to the mountains without me, they always bring me home leaves.
I thought this was a roast, but okay. She's over here crying, and I'm like, my dad just pooped in Ace Hardware.
But listen, this is our personalities, so I don't feel like any of you will be surprised at the direction this is taken.
He could out leg lift, so he got his gold gym passes when we were in high school. And so he'd come home and be home Fridays and Saturdays, and he loved to take us girls to the gold gym. And he was like one of my best weight trainers ever.
Yeah, he was.
Like
He was the best weight trainer.
I got pretty jacked with that. And he could out leg lift all the muscle men. So you have all those meatheads over there, and he'd go get on that machine where you'd lift the things with your legs, and here comes some guy with gray hair, and he'd go sit over there, and they'd kind of like, what's he gonna do? And he would load that thing up, and he got their attention.
Yeah, he did.
And then all of a sudden he actually started to do it, and then they were like, dude, look at this guy.
That's more than a car.
Right.
That's what they would say. They're like, this
Right.
guy's lifting a car.
Right, like
So when
he got a crowd.
Was it Dally that said he lifted the
The
truck
Ranger,
off?
like
Yeah.
you guys, his calves. He had to cut his cowboy boots to get his calves to fill. He always called them his tree trunks.
And if some of you guys working with him ever went to tussle, you stopped.
Yeah,
because he's tougher than he looked.
Yeah.
I don't want to read this one either.
Did you do more crying ones?
I think I did.
Okay, do you want me to skip it?
A few weeks ago, he called me and I said, Dad, how are you feeling? And he said, good. And I said, don't lie. And he started to cry and he said, I've always tried to be an honest man, but I've told a million lies when people ask me how I feel. That was the only time I ever heard him admit how sick he was. And every other time he would always just say, I'm doing better than I deserve, or no bad days.
Right. Kev had the young men and women asked one time, Kason, I think you're going to remember this one. They asked to borrow a flatbed trailer for Christmas caroling for the young men and women. And so he got it all set up. Him and Craig got it all set up and got everyone on there. And they started going down the road. Well, my dad went down first, and remember, he goes 95, like Kev was speeding. So he gets pulled over right down the street from where these young men and women are sitting. And my dad, he didn't think, like, he's small town. So he gets out of the car. Okay?
This was a new officer,
Yeah.
new to the area, new to the small town life.
Gets out of the car. He's like, hey, buddy. The guy's like, heck no. He has my dad, gunpoint.
Back in the car, sir.
Back in the car. He had him sprawled over the hood, okay, gun pointed, like it was a big deal.
The young men and women are caroling.
They come by and Casey's like, Uncle Kevin. And anyway, once the cop must have called for backup, and when backup got there, they're like, are you kidding me? It's Kevin. Like, what are you doing? But I think Kev did learn not to get out of the car.
He did. He was always lifting others up, no matter where he was or what he was doing. He was always looking for ways to help or uplift. He was successful in life and business, but he also helped others build and grow along the way. I mentioned to my husband last night how many old employees came through the line. Some recent, some from 20, 30, 40 years ago. A lot of worked for Rodney's with Kevin, a lot of worked for Kevin. I just thought it was amazing to see. My dad and grandpa lived by the saying, people don't work for us, they work with us. And I think it was a real testament to his character about how he treated his employees, that they still showed up 20, 30, 40 years later to show their respects. I'm always proud to be his daughter, but this made me really proud. He really was the best guy.
So he loved to go to Mexico. That was like his favorite vacation spot. And it was always an adventure with him, right, guys? The crew can tell us. But one time, well, first of all, you go down there, and he loved a good all-inclusive because it was like merman diet. He like ate everything from the sea. It was so gross. Like at one point, I remember looking over, and there was this little Mexican guy with like a barbecue set next to the pool, and he would like cook stuff and hand it to him, and he like tipped the guy.
Gave the guy $20.
And he's like, this is more than like my wage, and like, yeah. And then my dad felt bad, so I think he paid him probably.
But he followed him around with that barbecue for a whole week.
Yeah, my dad ate like a king.
Yeah. Mr. Kevin, can I get you some shrimp?
And he was friends with all the locals, like Lynn said. He just had a way. Whatever country we were in, he found friends there. He had some Mexican guys that tried to screw him out of money one time when we tried to swim with the dolphins. So Katie had really wanted to swim with the dolphins, and they were like, okay, we're going to do this. And so my dad was not happy about it because it's expensive. I mean, they really sock it to you when you're swimming with dolphins. So Kev pays for it. It wouldn't have been an Uber back then, but a taxi or something. all the way over to this place. We get there and they're like, she's too little. She can't do this. Katie's too little. Well, he's like, okay, then I want my money back. And they're like, yeah, sorry, sir. You're not getting your money back. Well, Kev reaches in the hole.
It's one of those little glass holes that they talk through.
Plexiglass, reaches in the hole, grabs the poor little Mexican man, pulls him up to the glass and is like, you're going to give me my money back. And Stace is in the back going, you're going to go to prison in Mexico. And that guy gave him his money back.
I'll never forget his face pressed against that glass.
I know. I'm
I was
sorry,
like,
Senor.
Dad, it's okay. My dad always made sure we had an emergency $100 bill in our wallet. He made sure all of us girls had them. Sometimes he'd give us a few extra just in case, but he always made sure that we always kept a $100 emergency bill.
Yeah. Kev also put a whole new spin on daddy daycare. So if he had to watch us and work too, he'd just throw you in the diesel for the day with him, which was always fun. And I mean, who else is taking nap times in a sleeper cab with a maroon diesel with a sexy chrome lady on the hood? He'd throw a baby doll and some few Barbies in that sleeper cab, my blanket, and I was basically like a trucker daycare. We never went hungry on the days we had with Dad, though. He always fed us something yummy and had all the snacks.
Yeah. My dad was the perfect girl dad. He took me prom dress shopping, and he was very specific before we left that there was a budget, and I was to stay under it, and there was no budging on the budget. So to keep my taste simple, he booked an appointment with me for Lila Lee because he knew she had the best dresses in the state. We tried on several dresses, and then Lila Lee, she could see he was a sucker. She brought out a dress that she wanted me to try, and I could tell just by looking at it that it was way out of the budget that had been set in advance. I tried it on and walked out, and he was like, what do you think? And I said, well, it's out of the budget. And he goes, but sis, it's the dress.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I thought the same thing. And we walked out with the dress and never talked about the budget.
The budget was never followed.
The budget was not followed.
And it was his idea. That's the best part.
Yeah.
And let the record state, I was the daughter with the full scoop in the dozer blade. I took Ledge. I pulled up on the job one day. He's like, go put your boy in there and take him for a ride. I was like, okay. So I get out there and I was like, drop the blade, did it. And I look out and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I get out and he's like, you had a full scoop in there, sis. It was rolling. And I was like, okay. So also, I was the daughter with the full blade. So neener. And when the one time I was doing yard work, here I was like a single mom trying to do stuff. And I was like, forget this. I am not using a stupid wheelbarrow when my dad has stuff up to the yard. So I went up there, stole the backhoe. And it's not that I stole it. I just was like, I'm going to borrow this for a minute. I know how to drive it. Well, I passed Dad on the road. He did like a huge double take, like, what? And he called right away. He was like, you're taking the backhoe. I'm like, yeah, I've got to go do yard work. And he's like, oh, okay. He was never prouder of me than at that moment.
We all had to learn to do burnouts. All the girls had to learn to do burnouts, and we had to learn in the Jimmy. We only got to do it one time. But you had to learn in the Jimmy because it had pause and track. We learned last night after talking that he took a lot of his nieces and nephews to do this too, and they all got one time because tires were expensive. So you learned once, you burned rubber once, and that was it. You never did it again.
Yeah. He was the best teacher. He always taught us to drive, pull trailers and drive in bad weather. He always has been with me every time I drive in my head. Take her wide, sis. Watch the temperature. And for water, and watch for the temperature, and for water flipping off other people's tires, pump your brakes in the snow. Let's see, I can't get them. On rainy days, on rainy hot days, the oil settles on the pavement, and it's more dangerous than black ice, slicker than snot, he'd say. Use your trailer brakes, and give it the what for, and then he would say mash on it, give it, did I write that twice? I don't know. Give her the what for. That was his saying.
He always loved to be the first person to wish you happy birthday. I don't know if he'd wait up till midnight, if he'd set an alarm. We know he wasn't tech savvy enough to do send later. But he would wait till the clock struck 12 o'clock and he'd be the first to send you a happy birthday text. And I think he did this with kids, friends, grandkids, nieces, everybody. So.
He always had us girls help him do things. Like he taught us how to change spark plugs, how to change flat tires. I was the official starter fluid sprayer for him. Like I would spray it in the air filter and he would yell, give her a little loudmouth, sis. And I would spray. as he finessed the throttle to get it to start. And then when it didn't start, he would call Lucas.
I would trust my dad with my whole life, except for when it came for picking out hotels. And I've got
We have a bone to pick with Lynn.
What
You
the
guys
heck?
stayed at
You
Little
stayed at Little
America?
America? No. He had the most terrible, cheapest, most ghetto taste in hotel rooms.
We're at the Motel 8
ever.
and Lynn's over at Little America.
What the heck? Yeah, I literally hit Brianna. I was like, rude.
We really did. Like, she was all, they stayed at Little America? We were
Yeah.
at the National 9.
No, for real. If he could stay somewhere for $39.99, he was doing it every day of the week. It was disgusting. One of the biggest fights my parents got in was actually because he booked us at the National 9, and my mom was like, we are not sleeping here. We're going to get diseases and probably burgled.
There was ants.
There was places that shouldn't have been.
Yep.
But yeah, he had terrible taste. He could also and would also eat anywhere. It's true he must be one of God's favorites because the places he would eat and how he never got food poisoning, I have no idea.
Right.
If there was a dive diner, he was going there. And Colby always said that he wasn't sure how he was still alive after some of the places my dad took him, and Brock says the same thing. He was one of the best customers at Jimmy's Taco Truck in Cedar. It was before taco trucks were even a thing. It was literally out of a van. These guys are smiling because they know what I'm talking about. Kev was a frequent at Jimmy's. Jimmy got arrested for selling meat that wasn't beef. We didn't ask questions.
It was a goat
but-
meat. So we've been eating goat this whole time that my dad took us there.
Yeah. We never trusted where he would take us to eat or stay. So I don't know how Lynn ended up at the Little America.
Yeah, eating a pancake with strawberries. Let's set the record straight that my dad was never really sad that he had a son. He was a diva. He couldn't even bait his own fishing hook. He hated the worms. They were gross. He didn't like the fish smell on his hands. He always snickered that none of his girls ever touched anything in his garage, his tools, but his brothers never could find anything. And their boys were all over in their things. Kev's tools always stayed neatly organized on a towel, all perfectly. Yeah, he was a diva, it has to be said. So please don't ever feel bad for him that he never had boys, because he loved us girls, but he used his nephews as his sons, and they were his sons through his eyes. They will always be, they always used their dad's tools, but then messed up their dad's garage, but felt like he won the lottery because he could teach him all the dad things.
He said he got the best of both worlds. My girls can do anything your boys can do. They're just cleaner and don't take my tools.
He always disagreed with my choice of cars. He always hated. He made fun of my. He always makes fun of my cars.
It's actually one of the last things he said when
I
he was
know.
waiting for you to get off the.
I know. So I had a Jeep, and he called it the roller skate. My 4Runner, he called the Jatmobile. I'm sorry, guys. It's unfiltered. It's just my dad. And my Subaru was called the Lesbaroo, because only me and lesbians drive Subarus. My good friend at work, she's a lesbian, and she drives a Subaru, and so I told her that my dad calls it that, and now all of her lesbian friends that drive Subaru also call it Lesbaroo, so I think we're okay. It's a trend, and he set that trend, so joke's on him. But I always like to tease him that I got 35 to 38 lesbians to the mile, or lesbians to the gallon in my old Subaru, and he would laugh at that. But I think he was just jealous because he only liked white Dodges, and he didn't understand the durability of Ford-made cars. And then we have to stop and listen. He might be rolling over in his grave by saying that. He didn't understand. But yeah, he probably just heard me say about foreign cars. In his mind, nothing's better than a Cummins motor. He might just die again, right, Scott? Like if it's foreign. He only likes white Dodges, probably not deleted by those who shall remain nameless, because that would be illegal, and my dad would never do those things.
Right. Because the Dodge Rasmussen white. And we won't even mention what happened when I showed up driving Ford.
Jake breaks. Kev loved a good Jake break. He always did the Tim Allen noise, like when he heard the Jake breaks. He always loved the smell of asphalt. He'd always say, smells like money. He always did the dirt work and paved. He did the dirt work and paved for the sewer treatment plants around Utah for all their construction. And for a small amount of time when it smelled like crap, we also got to hear, smells like money.
We're trying to keep this lighthearted, but I wanted to share one more story that I love so much. When my dad was in Arizona in the ICU after his stroke, I offered to stay the first night with him. At this point, we knew he'd had a stroke, but we didn't know any of the other prognosis. That night, things took a turn, and his stats started crashing. He was unresponsive, and his blood pressure would skyrocket and then just completely crash out. The monitors were going off, and the nurses were panicking, calling in doctors, and I could tell by the looks on their faces that whatever was happening, it was not good. They were trying pain stimulation to get him to respond or to wake up, and it wasn't working. The nurses kept yelling at him and shaking him, trying to get him to wake up. I stood back and watched all this happening, and I was so scared. One of the nurses stepped away from the bedside to grab something, and I just started talking to my dad. I put my head down next to him. I started talking to him. I told him I was there and that I needed him to wake up, and he didn't. I started talking a little louder and still nothing, and I kind of started to panic, and I grabbed him and I said, "Dad, it's 10 and I need you to wake up." His eyes instantly shot open, and he grabbed my head and kissed the top of it. And I told him everything was going to be okay and that I was there. Things settled down, but when I turned around, the nurse had tears on her cheeks. And she said, "Wow, that was really beautiful." She said that wasn't his body reacting to you, that was his soul reacting to you. And I can tell just by what I saw what an amazing dad he was. He is.
And again, she's being all sentimental, and I'm like, okay. Dad always changed the gaskets in his old truck. His old trucks got louder and faster. So he would always tell my mom, "I've just got to run that truck down. It's got to get its new gaskets put in." And I'll never forget. I'll never forget the time that he told my son Ledge. He started the yellow truck, which the yellow truck had new gaskets, so it was really loud because you know gaskets do that. And he started it, revved it up, and he came out and he looked at Ledge and he said, "That yellow truck could spank its own monkey." I'm like, "Dad." He was lucky he only had daughters and a wife because we knew nothing about trucks or things. And I've turned into an adult. It's crazy because I've never once changed my gaskets in my car. But I don't know, Zach, maybe we should put gaskets in our car so I can go faster. Based on Kev's theory, it's probably just necessary and our car would run better. Also, when they change your gaskets, it comes with a free sexy lady painting on your engine.
My dad never called anyone by their real name. He had a nickname for everyone, especially his grandkids. Cato, Dalbert, Pup, Vinny, Ave, Butters, Kinners, Brecky, Stoddy, and Brooksy Boo. He loved being a dad, but he thrived as a grandpa. It was by far his favorite job. I see so much of grandpa in you grandkids. Kate, your personality. You're so dang likable, just like your grandpa. Dal, your drive. Your grandpa accomplished great things because he thought he could, and you have that same quality. Tryon, you're a hard worker. Grandpa worked hard his entire life, and you'll be able to do great things if you keep working hard. Quinny, your kind heart and love for caring of others. That reminds me a lot of your grandpa. Avery, you're so brave. You aren't afraid to talk in crowds or things that make others nervous, and that reminds me a lot of your grandpa. Kinners, you are so creative. You love to design things, and you have a great eye for putting things together and making simple things great. I think you get that from your grandpa. Rick, you are so smart. That reminds me of your grandpa. Yeah. Scotty and Brooksy, you are too little to know yet. We're too little to know yet how you are like your grandpa, but I'm excited to watch and see what traits of his you have.
Before we close, we just kind of want to go over the best Kevinisms of things that he would say mid-conversation that you guys have probably all heard that can make you laugh. Again, I'm sorry, he's just unfiltered, but it's colder than a witch's nipple out there.
And that's what he would have said this morning. Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, depending on the day, sometimes got a different variant from the witch too. It's colder than a well-digger's arse outside.
Okay. That went over like a turd in a punch bowl.
He's tighter than a gnat's ass stretched over a wagon.
I need a sweet treat or something to get the taste out of my mouth.
If someone rolled the car or something like that, he would always say it flipped back on its hoofs, or it broke, or someone broke their leg, he would say they had a bad hoof.
He's like, "Oh, that one was a bad hoof." Hotter than the hoofs of hell. We could stand up here for days telling stories about my dad, about who he was, what he did, and the way he lived his life. But the truth is, there really aren't words big enough to describe the impact he had on us. Everything we are in so many ways is because of him. We owe him more than we could ever
say goodbye today, we do so with heavy hearts, but also with hope. His love, his example, his spirit didn't leave with him. They live on in us. Because our faith, we know this goodbye is not forever, but only for now.
Dad, thank you for the life you lived, the love you gave, and the legacy you leave behind. We love you, we miss you, and we know we'll see you again. Until then, we will live every day to make you proud.
Following my remarks, I'll announce the rest of the program and sort of how it will flow the rest of the day. We'll have a closing, after my remarks, we'll have a closing song by Dally Davis, a granddaughter, accompanied by Heather Hallows, Go Rest High on a Mountain, song that he requested. Then we'll have a benediction by Kelly Wilson, a dear friend, and from there we will proceed to the Pioneer Cemetery. Again, we're grateful for Tia and all of her work. She just asked us to, as we hang out here just a little bit, let them get the flowers moved, and if there was if anybody could help move flowers, would just help them, give them time to set up at the cemetery. From there, we'll have the great dedication by Kate Harwood, a grandson. I'd like to mention the pallbearers at this time: Craig Rasmussen, Kirk Rasmussen, Troy Manuel, Colby Harward, Tryon Harward, Ledge Davis, Breck Church, Brooke Wilcox, Jake the Dog, Zach Wilcox, Cason Church, Kate Harward, and Scott Weber. Honorary pallbearers listed: Mike Hansen, Chance Autry, Carl Rasmussen, Lucas Catmull, Gary Mason, Kirby Nelson, Barry Sorensen, Kelly Mason, Rick Heaps, Nate Johnson, Jeff Edwards, Robert Anderson, and Coach Partridge. After we have the time at the cemetery, there will be a luncheon provided, and they've set up for a lot. We went ahead and went down to the rec center as we're getting ready for state conference as well today, as you might be aware, with all the chairs back there. I get a chance not only, I don't know how they didn't cry this much, but here I go. Not only is my role with the family, Stacy and girls, thank you for the opportunity that I have to share a few words, but I also get to share a few stories. Besides my own father, Craig, Kevin shaped my life, and to me was my second dad. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't share not only a few stories, bad habits that I was taught, and also laws that I broke with my Uncle Kevin. As they mentioned, the elk hunt in the mountains was a rite of passage for us young kids. We always had chance. And they stated it, Kevin was a horrible hunter. But I remember the thing with camp and going to elk camp, as it was called, was not only the Dutch oven potatoes, but it was riding the wheelers. And us kids were able to ride the wheelers back and forth around camp. And I remember this one specific time, there was a little bit of commotion and a little bit of hoopla, and there was some gathering around. And this white-looking wheeler emerged out of the back of this man's truck. And it was at that moment that I fell in love with two-stroke engines, when he kick-started that 250R. And if anybody knows what a 250R sounds like and how fast it goes, they were not made for the trails in Gooseberry as you elk hunting. But Kevin Rasmussen found a way to get that thing over those rocks, through the mud holes, faster and quicker than anybody could. Nobody got any out that day. As time grew on, I knew that my time and my courage grew and grew as I was able to see Uncle Kevin ride this. And after many no's, I said, Uncle Kev, can I take that for a spin? And he finally said yes. And I knew then what it felt like to ride the 250R in the mountain. I can't believe nobody mentioned one bit about his obsession with Armor All. And now the Armor All department will start to see decline in sales as Kevin has passed, as you don't notice his shiny black and chrome casket. Very, very fitting of him. I remember many times at the lake, he would say, grab that bottle of Armor on. I said, what are we doing, Kevin? He says, we're putting it on the water beanie. We'll see if they can hang on from there. The same as we got to the parking lot up at Gooseberry. He'd have a rag in his hand and an Armor All in the other hand, and he would come and he would Armor All your seat. And if any snowmobilers out there know, Armor All is not your friend on a snowmobile seat. His seat never had it on. Everybody else's, and everybody would pull into the parking lot, and he would come and he would write down those names. As I grew into my teenage years, it was time to take on the job, follow the family business, and I was able to go out and work with Uncle Kevin. I remember my first paving job, but I want to mention the years before that with Grandpa and with my dad. They owned blades, and we were on many dirt jobs that chased redheads, as we call them. And my dad had his blade, and looked up to my dad greatly as they ran those yellow Caterpillar blades, and also Grandpa. But it was time, as you know, to go on the paving crew. Paving was a little bit different. It was filled with wonderful smells. And I stopped, and I grabbed this piece of asphalt from Uncle Kev, because he loved asphalt. It was filled of stories of Uncle Kevin making all sorts of friends out on the road, waving at everybody passing by, a lot of sunburns, and a lot of road trips down south to pave. And if you couldn't hack life out on the road, or you didn't think asphalt smelled really good, you were demoted to the dirt crew, just like that. There was a story I'd like to just tell real quick. We were down paving one time, and the fuel tank sort of had a crack. And this guy named Captain Helmet from the UDOT shed said we can weld that crack back up. Now, mind you, this is on a diesel tank. I'm being 14 or 15 years old this time. Dustin Rasmussen's with me. We're working on the crew. And all we could think is, this guy's going to weld on a fuel tank. And the guy says, it'll be fine, and it has to be full so it doesn't blow up. So we go back to the UDOT shed, and this guy takes out his welding stick, and you got your welding hood, and this guy starts to weld. From a welding hood, you don't see much, except for just the arc of what you're welding. Well, at that time, the pinhole got bigger and started, so we got a 1,000-gallon fuel tank, and this guy's welding, can't see a thing, and fuel is shooting over this guy's head. And it ignites. And this guy's welding away. Dustin and I we're behind, before this even started, we go behind the building, and me and Dustin keep looking out just like this, looking out. There was Kevin, and Kevin was, he'd look back at us, and we'd go like this, and this fuel. Finally, we just got so scared. There's fuel going down this guy's arms, and he's just welding on this thing, and the hole's getting bigger, and there's 1,000 gallons of diesel, and I'm like, I'm just waiting for this thing to blow up. And I remember looking back out, and I couldn't see Uncle Kevin. I looked back, and Uncle Kevin's behind Dustin. He's back there with us. And, it's about one of the only times I've seen Uncle Kevin scared for his life. But I thought he was missing, and then just come to find out he couldn't hit. So, moral of the story, if a man named Captain Helmet wants to weld on a fuel tank, you tell him no. But he got it. It was down in the hands. Last Sunday I had the chance to go out. I laid down by Uncle Kevin. It was just me and him for just a little bit. He pulled me close, kissed my forehead, and he says, think of me every time you smell a little bit of asphalt. And again, that's why I have this here, part of my talk today. We cried, I cried, and then we laughed and said, how stupid is that? Uncle Kev, I'll always remember that every time I smell asphalt. I have the opportunity in my job to be able to make it, design it, and see it used every day. Another thing for me as a nephew is, as I go to Grandma's house and Uncle Kevin was there, I'd always ask him if we could go see Jimmy. It was always parked across the street. That's one of the things that I was always always excited to see, and that's where my love for old trucks and the 72s and 68 Chevys really blossoms, when he'd go show me the Jimmy. One day I was just like the 250R. I asked him, I says, do you think I could drive it? And he says, yeah, let's go. And then again, I got brave enough to ask to see if I could take it on prom. I sure feel bad for my prom date. I don't think I even talked to her. I was so happy to drive that truck. I just told her not to scratch it, don't lean out the window, don't roll down the window, don't open the wing windows or anything like that. Make sure her dress didn't have any sequins, glitter, or anything. I felt so bad. But I got to drive Jimmy. As we share a lot of memories and stories about these old trucks, I remember we sat and we were talking about old Jimmy. And I was sitting with Stace, and multiple times this story came up. And one of the times I remember talking, we were with Stacy, and he just said, Brock, these old trucks are not just things, they're not just possessions that I have. They are my livelihood and my life and memories that I've lived. And he says, that old Jimmy of mine was the first time I brought home a daughter. When Tanya was born from the hospital, that was the first ride in the vehicle that Tanya had, was in that old Jimmy. She sat there, and he says, I remember distinctly having her sit in the middle, looking over at Stacy, looking back at Tanya. And then that's when I realized how important making those memories in those vehicles. And so as those vehicles get passed down, as those memories get passed down, we remember Grandpa, we remember Kevin, and he just remembers Tanya in that truck, looking up at the dash and back. I mean, it was a spiritual experience, and he says that it was a spiritual experience. And he says, I want you all to know, well, here's what he said. I had to write it down, and he says, when the day comes, which is today, I want you to put me on the back of Jimmy. We're going to do that. You're going to see it. We're going to honor that wish. I want you to dig a big old hole, bury me with it. We're not doing that, Kevin. And he jokingly said, I know you bleeps won't. But at least I asked you to. And if at all, you know that truck never leaves this family. And that sweet girl gets to ride in it for the rest of her life, whenever she wants. He then threatened that he would come out of the graves if we had any other attentions with that truck besides hand it down in the family. Kev, we're going to take you on that truck today. We share all those moments. We developed this relationship. He started collecting truck after truck like it was addiction. Until we realized that as he bought a new truck, he took a grandkid in that truck. And he always said, and told us all, he says, that every grandkid was so excited as a new truck got, because that was the lasting legacy of their grandpa, that those trucks were made for those grandkids and the memories. You've heard every one of these grandkids talk about those trucks. And as they get passed down, the memories will live on, and the legacy of Kevin will live on with those. My only hope to you grandkids is you guys come pick me up and let me go for a ride in one of those trucks one day. Now, where do we go from here? We've talked about Kevin. We've talked about the fun times, the hard times, his fight with cancer, and all the many different fun sayings that we have. Where do we go from here? Where do we go physically? Where do we go emotionally? Where do we go spiritually? Where do we go far as being like him, giving to others, serving other people? Where do we go emotionally? Where do we go for help? Where do we go find peace? Where do we go from here when the man that we consider the greatest of all time in our eyes have passed? How do we maintain the love and compassion that he showed for his family, but not only for his community and each and every one of you? There's not a single gym, football field in this valley without his name and the company's name on it. From BMX to the riding club, dance, cheerleading, and the numerous missionaries, employees that he supported and donated time to. Little league teams of all sorts and sizes. He was a man that loved his community. He gave to his community, and it shows, because each and one of you are here to honor that man who was a great part of this community. His ask for each and every one of you is to give back to your community, build it up, make sure this is a great place to raise your children, to do burnouts in parking lots, but just to love and support everyone. We need to look for opportunities to serve, lend a hand, and do what Kev would do. Now, where do we go on a spiritual plane? How do we reconnect with our Heavenly Father and our Savior, Jesus Christ? I laid down with him a few Sundays ago, all by myself. He grabbed my arms. He says, I know where I'm going. And he just didn't know. He said, I just don't know when. He told me it would be soon, that he was tired, as he kissed my forehead. As I read in Moses 1:39, for behold, this is my work and my glory, to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. Kevin loved priesthood blessings. He knew the power that was involved in them. Families are eternal. And our Heavenly Father's plan is to bring to pass that eternal life of man. As Kevin would like to share any scriptures, and I asked him, I said, what would you like me to share? These scriptures embody what he's told me. This is in Matthew 22, 36 through 39. And Kevin embodied this. This was one of Christ's apostles says, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And this is the first great commandment. Kevin believed that, and also this. And this is what he also would share, and he told me to share. The second is enlightenment to it. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Kevin loved his family. He loved his grandkids. He loved his friends. He loved his community. He loved people. He was a giant among men. So how do we find comfort in the man that we love and that we've lost? Stacy, girls, grandchildren, family, Kurt, Sheila, my dad, his family members, we went through some loss. These are the scriptures in which I'll close. John 14:26 and 27. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things unto your remembrance, whatsoever I say unto you. Grandkids, the Holy Ghost will bring that remembrance of your grandpa to you. In verse 27, peace I leave with you, peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, nor let it be afraid. It might be hard to find comfort in the days to come, but I promise you the Holy Ghost and our Heavenly Father will give you that comfort. I testify of eternal families of our Savior Jesus Christ, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. me follow that. Here comes. What a special day this has been. We are so eternally grateful for the opportunity to come here and celebrate the life of one of the greatest individuals here from this week. We're so grateful for the personality, the person that you made Kevin to be. How he affected all our lives and how he taught us all lessons during those lives. I was grateful for every minute that we ever had with him. Grateful for the opportunity to give us to know that we'll get to be with him again someday. To know that he's rejoicing with his mom and dad at this time. Father, we ask a blessing over this family, that they may be comforted and looked after, not just today, well into the future. Because there's a hole that they're going to have that is next to impossible to fill. Father, we ask you to take our friend, our dad, our family, with open arms and welcome him. And see you bless this congregation and comfort. Ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Will the audience please rise? We just got to have a few minutes, but all the pallbearers, we're going to go right out this side door. Pallbearers right outside the door. So pallbearers right outside the door. And again, if there's anyone that would be as we move flowers out, we'll just hurry the process. We know it's cold. Again, we're grateful. So pallbearers, go ahead and